Ladies and gentlemen, I am right outside the United States Capitol building, and I'll be asking Republican congressmen about all the paid protesting, the migrant shelters, and everything that we have investigated. And I'll be asking also about the One Big Beautiful Bill and what is next for the future of our country. I'll see you in there.
Oh my God, I love you. You're so cool.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh my God, you're so. I love watching you. I've been liking all your Instagrams.
Oh, I mean so much.
Because they've been attacking me since my first term. And we had more of a swing district, and now I don't. But they're still out there. You know, they're still out there trying to attack us. So
the congresswoman does have a paid opposition. You can see that they protest against her despite her very sizable victory. Here's one of the protesters being interviewed at a Medicaid vigil outside her office. He represents the 1199 SEIU, which is the healthcare worker branch of the Service Employees International Union. This is Tracy Harrison, who is an administrative organizer for 1199 SEIU, which is a chapter of the union known for fighting for healthcare rights for illegal immigrants. He has recently been promoted to vice president. His total compensation now is $136,000 a year, and part of his duties are clearly to protest. This particular chapter of the union is a long-standing supporter of convicted Marxist Puerto Rican nationalist terrorist Oscar Lopez Rivera, praising him as a freedom fighter and even comparing him to George Washington. Now, Rivera plotted to overthrow the U.S. government and was caught with explosives. Now, at the end of his second term, President Barack Obama commuted Rivera, so it's no surprise that former members of this union chapter did have prominent roles in the Obama administration. And you know, it's funny, the rhetoric from the left is that Trump is a dictator, and yet guess what you see the second you step out of Union Station in D.C.? This encampment saying some not so nice things about Trump. Now, if Trump was a dictator, these tents would be gone in about 2 seconds. But let's learn about what this place is and if any congressmen are actually involved.
Can you tell me what this is and maybe who you work with or anything like that?
Yeah, my name is Jake. We're with Flair USA. We're an organization, 24/7 protest out here, dedicated right now to the impeachment, conviction, and removal of Donald Trump. We will not stop lobbying Congress, protesting, demonstrating, or performing other actions until they get it and remove Trump.
Cool. Flair USA. Okay, and who are your partners?
Partners, at the moment, we have MOP, we got the DSA, we have 5051 DC, as well as GSUS, General Strike US.
Okay, cool, awesome. And have you seen some high-profile people seen this and talked about it or anything like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, we do, as far as congressional partners go, we have had Green, Tanadar, and Swalwell speak on our stage over there.
Okay, cool.
We're currently in talks with AOC to get her support as well.
Okay, awesome, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So they have had congressmen actually speak there, even with this absolutely foul messaging. AOC is also looking to get involved, to the surprise of nobody. But look, the fact is, this is an extremist group who has posts on their Instagram like catching Nazis leaving their offices, referring to just people that work with the Trump administration. Now, briefly looking at Flair USA, they appear to be self-funded, but they have multiple partners like he said, so I'll be doing a deep dive in a later video. But now, back to the Congresswoman.
Could you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi everyone, I'm Claudia Tenney. I am the representative for New York's 24th Congressional District, and that's all of upstate New York. Basically from one end of the St. Lawrence Seaway all the way to the Niagara River, and I think I described to your viewers what my district looks like. It's the northern border with Canada, and I was one of the very first people to sound the alarm on the problems at the northern border, that the cartels were realizing that there was a crunch at the southern border, and now they were moving to the northern border because we really just didn't have the resources there. And although the numbers are lower, almost 90% of the people on the terror watch list actually come across the northern border. And so I've refocused a lot of people's attention on that. Tom Homan actually hails from my district, still has a home there, and one of the co-founders of the Northern Border Security Caucus. So we meet regularly to talk about how we can help all of our local law enforcement, plus ICE, plus Customs and Border Protection, and everyone that's trying to keep our northern border secure. And I just think your viewers should know, why is this happening in New York? Because New York is one of the sanctuary states, sanctuary cities, sanctuary campuses, and they have this thing called the Green Light Law that was passed by then Governor Cuomo that actually prohibits our law enforcement from working the Department of Motor Vehicles and other agencies to determine if we have criminal gang members and people, in our midst that are coming across our border.
Why would he prohibit something like that? What would be the incentive?
Oh, well, they were trying to get, they give driver's licenses to illegals. They've done everything they can because I started the Election Integrity Caucus too. So, I used to think it was a cynical theory to think the Democrats were just trying to bring people in, getting them registered to vote, and then, keeping their status in power. But now I'm starting to believe it is a reality. I mean, the numbers, just the breadth of the numbers of people coming across our border illegally, regardless of whether you were criminal or not, is really not explicable in any other way.
Well, now that the bleeding has stopped,
Yeah.
I still go to the migrant shelters that are still open, in fact. For example, the Row Hotel is a 4-star hotel, and I spoke to a woman that she said, I'm not getting any health care, but I said, did you pay for your child to be born when you went to the hospital? No, I didn't pay. Some parents are paying $40,000 for something like that. So can you explain, what do we do about these migrant shelters that are still open that, honestly, they're in Midtown New York City. Migrants are lounging around on the street. They're not really wanting to assimilate. They say that the government's not doing enough. So what do we do?
Yeah, well, we have tried to stop the spending on that. That's one of the things that we have put in place. I've done a number of bills with many of my colleagues from New York to say that we're not going to give any federal funding to New York until they stop giving illegal migrants, especially criminals, our health care. Although I had Kathy Hochul, she was in the Congress, I don't know, it was about a month ago or so. She was here with Governor Waltz and Governor Pritzker, and we got to confront her on, do you know how much we're spending? She couldn't even really say, and she just passed the New York budget. We know it's at least $7 billion of New York taxpayer money. We just passed a record budget, $254 billion. That's about a little over $100 billion more than when I served in the state legislature just 8 years ago. That's the rate of spending, and it's mostly going to illegal migrants. Who's not getting it? Poor New Yorkers, homeless veterans. Most of my county governments, and I described the 14 counties that I represented, I've been to the county legislatures. We don't have the capacity, even for our own homeless people, and now we're being asked to house and take care of, homeless, illegal immigrants. Some of them are gang members. We know that, and we're being forced by the state government. And we have an attorney general who's particularly dangerous, who I think should be disbarred and removed from office, who is now trying to go after any of these different counties and local government officials who are actually trying to do something about that, who are standing up to these laws. This is the attorney general threatening to bring to court and to run them dry of money because they don't have the resources to fight the attorney general, using our taxpayer dollars, by the way, to go after any local government that uses the 287G program, by the way, which allows our local governments to coordinate with ICE to find criminal illegal immigrants in our midst.
Right.
She's actually threatening to prosecute them. We have to, she prosecuted a great friend of mine, and you should meet some days, a guy named the county executive of Rensselaer County, Steve McLaughlin, the only one to implement 287G, the only county executive in the entire state of New York who actually wouldn't let Cuomo put COVID-positive patients in a nursing home. The only county executive with 8 consecutive tax cuts for his county government, 40% decrease in county taxes in 8 years, and guess what? Had a phony lawsuit brought against him by Letitia James. He won in a unanimous jury verdict. So this is how they play the game in New York, and the taxpayers are always on the hook. So I'm saying this is all about politics. It's not about the good of New Yorkers. And we have a feckless governor who goes along and lets this happen as well.
So we've got Mamdani, who's the front runner for mayor. So he's talking about Trump-proofing the city. And not only that, but the government-run grocery stores. But is this increase in the budget for ICE going to allow them to effectively work in sanctuary cities? What is this budget really going to do?
Yeah, it's going to help some. But I'm telling you, New York needs to wake up and vote these people out of office. I feel and I worry that Mamdani's going to win. I'm concerned about his status. This is a guy calling for a global intifada. This is a member of the New York State Legislature who took an oath of office to uphold the state legislature or state constitution as well as the federal constitution. How is calling for a global intifada within the bounds of our constitution? I question whether he should even be serving in office or whether we could expel him as a member of the New York State Legislature and whether we could actually prevent him from being elected as the mayor of New York City. How do you work against the taxpayers of New York, work against our constitutional system, and then be able to be in office? I think it's going to be a real problem. The money is obviously a problem. The Democrats are continuing to put money in the budget for illegal immigrants, continuing to put money in the budget, for things that New York taxpayers aren't going to vote for. But again, vote harvesting, winning on process, not policy, is the Democrats how they gain power. Everyone needs to wake up and vote against them.
So she, the post that President Trump shared, I found her all over serving Sammy Dune. It's a nonprofit that's designated as a terrorist organization by U.S. and Canada. Yeah. So it looks to be that they're still operating. What do we do about these NGOs that are wreaking havoc on our cities through these protests?
Yeah, I think we need to try to defund them, take away their not-for-profit status, first of all, which is we have tried to do on the Ways and Means Committee. But I'll tell you, these people all deny that they're paid protesters. We have paid protesters in my communities, and they don't even realize, some of them, that they can get paid. If they stand up and hold a protest sign, they just have to submit it, and they get reimbursed for that. And a lot of them do that. This is a cottage industry of protesters. They're not authentic. They're obviously astroturfing. But I love you for exposing this. You're amazing. The courage you have in putting up with some of these trolls. I mean, they've been coming after me for years. So
thank you so much for what you do. It's an honor to meet you. Thank you.
So it was definitely surreal to be recognized by a member of the United States Congress. Now, before we jump into more interviews, I want to give you a little context as to what this event really was, and I'll definitely be talking about it more at the end of this episode. So the Republican Study Committee, the largest conservative caucus on the Hill, with 189 members, hosted their first ever New Media Row, where they invited members of the non-legacy media to speak with members of Congress. It took place in this beautiful room, which is called the Cannon Caucus Room, and each outlet there had their own table. Now, this was mine, and the poster I made of Trump sharing my reporting was the best idea I could think of to hook as many congressmen to do an interview with me. I am pleased to say that there's many more interviews in this episode, and the only reason I was able to be at the Capitol is because of you. So I deeply thank you for watching the show and allowing me to follow up on our reporting with the lawmakers of our country. Now, just before we speak to our next lawmaker, did you see that the Trump administration is now handing over Medicaid recipients' personal data to ICE? The left is calling it a grave violation that weaponizes sensitive health information. The right is emphasizing how migrants shouldn't have gotten Medicaid to begin with, and that this is a way to remove barriers to deport illegal migrants. Now, before going to DC, I used the Ground News app to better understand both sides, especially on the One Big Beautiful Bill, so that I could ask great questions. If you didn't know, Ground News is an app and website where they aggregate the news so you don't have to click on each individual site to see what's really going on. If you want to see how that person in your life sees the news the opposite way that you do, then the Ground News blind spot feed will do just that. It doesn't just show you what's trending, it exposes what each side is choosing not to cover. If you truly want to stay informed about what's happening around the world and how different people are reacting to it, check out Ground News. It's one of the best ways to support the channel, and they're such a great match for us that you can get 40% off the same plan that I use, which is the Vantage plan. Just head to ground.news/Friedman or scan the QR code to help us cover security costs for these videos and experience the news from a whole new perspective.
Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Brad Knott, North Carolina 13th Congressional District.
So I've done a lot of reporting on the illegal immigration in our country. I've seen people who have come across the border. They lie that they're family members. They have children just to stay in the shelter longer. There's so much crime. What is the solution to get illegal immigrants out of this country right now?
That's a great question. It's a question that requires a lot of discussion and more time than we have. But basically, you could boil it down to they're incentivized to come here because the cost is not sufficient to deter illegal crossing. And we see that with sanctuary jurisdictions. We see that with the refusal to vet people who come into the country. We see that with the refusal to keep any semblance of a border infrastructure in place with the previous administration. And the effect of that is anywhere between 30 and 40 million illegal immigrants in the country. Yeah. And to fix that problem, we have to reprioritize the law and our resources to protect American citizens and to punish those who are here illegally. And of course, you start with those who are here illegally to commit crimes. You have to separate them out and enable very quick, efficient prosecutions and convictions. And then you've got to deter people who come outside the legal channels. And it'll take a while, but it's worth doing.
Absolutely. And what about these no-bid deals? I've investigated a lot of these contracts. For example, DocGo in New York City got $432 million of taxpayer money to run 32 migrant shelters. And I've been there personally recently, and they're still going on. How do we stop these no-bid contracts? How do we prevent this from happening?
You know, the paradigm example of a no-bid contract is the one that was received by Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams got $2 billion handed to her for basically a political slush fund. And the Democrats have been very shrewd in how they allocate tax dollars to further their own political objectives. The open border is nothing more than a tool for the Democrats to facilitate a political end that they're trying to achieve. And it's the same recipe: more transparency, more scrutiny, and then ultimately fewer tax dollars being thrown into a slush fund. You can't have this just exorbitant, year on, year out, billions of dollars to every cause you want to throw it at. And that's what we've got to rein in.
So what is this $2 billion political slush fund that Congressman Knott is talking about? Here's a 1-minute crash course on it. In April 2024, the EPA awarded $20 billion in total climate grants through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. $2 billion went to a newly formed nonprofit called Power Forward Communities, which claimed it would help low-income Americans retrofit homes with energy-efficient upgrades. Now, Power Forward was a coalition of 5 groups and was only formed 6 months before the massive grant. Stacey Abrams was senior counsel to one of the 5 groups called Rewiring America. Stacey also used to be a member of Georgia's House of Representatives. She was involved just before they received the grant. Now, the EPA allowed the money to be held in a city bank account outside direct government control. Then grant recipients were reportedly told to start spending down the balance within 21 days, but submit a budget within 90 days and complete budget training after spending began. That's the complete reverse of how it normally goes, where you submit a plan and then you spend the money.
Well, I've spoken to a lot of illegal immigrants that say if they get a chance to vote, they will always vote Democrat. So given that there will probably be another Democrat president at some time in the future, how do we ensure that no matter who's president, that our border stays secure?
That's a great question. I will push back a little bit. Republicans have better ideas. So whoever comes into the country, I think Republicans will gain their vote, but that does not mean you embrace lawlessness. And there are people who will harm this country, who will exploit the open border. In year 1990, there were 4,000 people who died in the country because of illegal drugs. From 2020 until today, there are almost 1.2 million. Again, that's just one statistic. The toll that illegal immigration has placed on this country, you cannot build it back. We've got to get ahead of it, take politics out of it. It needs to be fixed, and it is incumbent on us to do that.
How do we take politics out of it when, to me, it's kind of obvious. For the census, you don't need, these illegal immigrants are counted in the census, so Democrats keep the House, right? Sure. Or they can keep their seats. Sure. So how do we make this not political? How do we make this say, look, everyone, we want a strong border, no matter which side you're on?
Well, there's two parts of that. We do need to secure the border, but then we need to deport and disincentivize continued illegal crossings. And the best way we can do that is to, again, highlight the harm that comes to this country because of those policies. If we don't have a border, this country will cease to exist. Not just metaphorically, but truly. You flood the country with, let's say, 100 million people from all over the world. America is not going to be the same.
I just wanted to quickly clarify my point about the census. Now, because illegal immigrants are counted in the census, it heavily shifts congressional power toward blue states that accept illegal immigrants. Appointments to Congress are based on total population, so damage has already been done. Now, there are many more damaging aspects of illegal immigrants being counted in the census. One more is that population dictates federal funding. So if your state is playing by the rules, you might just lose out on federal funding.
So with the One Big Beautiful Bill just being put into law, what can Americans look forward to real change? Is there a part of the bill that you can point to and say, this is going to significantly change the lives of Americans?
Well, there's two. One, the border is going to be fully funded. So that means there's going to be a wall. There's going to be hard infrastructure that is going to be constructed. There's going to be enforcement mechanisms with new technologies that are going to be placed throughout the southern and northern and maritime borders. So we are going to have real border security. And then secondly, ICE will have the resources and the facilities to really go into the country to remove those, again, prioritizing the most dangerous illegals, remove those from our country. Yeah. And that's never happened before. We have the most robust immigration enforcement the country has ever had because of the Big Beautiful Bill. And it came just in the nick of time. And there's this mechanism called the Supremacy Clause. Whatever New York, whatever Chicago, whatever San Francisco decides to do in their political platform, that does not affect Tom Homan and ICE. If there are people who are in the country illegally, they cannot be given safe harbor by a liberal activist, no matter where they are. And if there's an MS-13 gang member or someone who's working in a field, obviously you prioritize the MS-13 gang member. But what people lose sight of, there are MS-13 gang members who work in fields, who work in hospitals, who work in restaurants. And so this problem is too big to splice it. It's one problem, and we have to fix all of it.
I'm Mike Rowley. I'm the congressman of the Ohio 6.
We are seeing Mamdani surge right now. His platform is free buses, grocery stores run by the government. He's a Democrat socialist. And in Minnesota, we're seeing the same thing with the Minneapolis mayor. So what do you say about this new wave of socialism that we're seeing?
I think definitely the death of the American worker. My family has operated grocery stores for 110 years in Youngstown, Ohio. And something you have to realize is the blue collar man doesn't have a lot of luxuries in this country of things that they can actually enjoy. One of the things they do enjoy is going to a grocery store, being offered 35,000 items of anything that's going to make you happy for that night after you worked a 9 to 6. So I think to say a government run grocery store is the most irresponsible rhetoric I've ever heard out of someone that desires to be elected official. I think you look at Cuba and you look at the Castro family and the empty shelves for generations. And even if you look at Bush, when Yeltsin, the president or the czar or whatever he is of Russia comes over, he goes into a New Jersey grocery store, cannot believe the variety. He never saw that much variety. The idea that this so-be mayor thinks that he's going to turn grocery stores, put hundreds of them out of business, hundreds of independent grocers out of business, is the most unacceptable thing. The guy's a disgrace.
In that interview, I said the same thing with the Minneapolis mayor. Now, I was actually referring to one of the candidates who is running on some of the same principles Mamdani is. His name is Omar Fateh, who is already a state senator who wants to Trump-proof the city, freeze the rent, and not allow ICE into Minneapolis under any circumstances. Omar also wants to defund and dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. Omar describes himself as a Democrat socialist. Make no mistake, socialism is trending across the country.
Keith Self, I serve the 3rd District in the great state of Texas.
So I've exposed a lot of paid protesters, people who are paid to agitate, even wearing Hamas headbands at multiple protests. And when I've asked police officers in New York City, they say that it's free speech, that if it was 100, 1,000 people with Hamas headbands, it would still be okay. Would you allow that in your state?
So if there was 50 people with Hamas headbands, it would be fine?
Yes.
100?
Yes.
Even 1,000?
Yes. Yes, you would allow it, but I would try to educate my people that Sharia is not allowed in the United States because Sharia is really incompatible with the United States Constitution. So it's an issue of Sharia. Who do you owe your allegiance to? Do you owe your allegiance to the U.S. Constitution or to some foreign culture, which really is Sharia is?
I'm noticing a trend of, even on the right, of not promoting a U.S.-Israel strong relationship. What do you say to this recent trend?
I think it's a mistake. That is our cultural heritage. The Judeo-Christian foundation of this nation is very clear in our founding documents. This is a consequence of not teaching civics in school anymore, of not teaching patriotism. So, I mean, this is a result of what we have engendered now for decades. And now we're starting to reap the results of what we have been sowing. It is very dangerous. When you think about it, Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East. I have been in the Knesset twice. Both times I heard an Arab member of the Knesset wailing away. What Arab nation has a Jewish member of whatever their...
So much for apartheid, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just one more follow-up on that is that people will say, well, Israel's our strongest ally, but why? Why do we need to give them money? How do they benefit America's agenda?
Well, there's several reasons. Let's start with the defense reason. We co-produce a lot of weapons systems. Iron Dome, for instance, is built. Some of them are built in the United States. Then let's talk about they are the only truly democratic ally we have in the Middle East politically. That's the second reason. The third reason is that Judeo-Christian heritage we talked about, because the Western world, which Winston Churchill called Christian civilization, is based on the Bible, both Old and New Testament.
How do you feel about no-bid contracts?
It's anathema to fair game. That's what it is. It's a giveaway to somebody that they know. So, I mean, it's as simple as that. Either you write the contract very narrowly for only one person, one NGO, one company, or you simply give it to them.
When I see them arrested at multiple protests, that means they're getting back out on the streets and they're doing it again. And people that are employed by the People's Forum, which is funded by Roy Neville Singham, millions of dollars being funded into this, and they're at Columbia. They're not even Columbia students, and they're vandalizing, but then they're back out on the street. Do we need harsher punishments for this?
You need a better DA. If the cop arrests someone and the DA, you know your elected DA, you're going to reap what you sow. Again, if you're electing a DA that's not going to prosecute anybody, then you're getting what you voted for.
So it comes down to the DA.
In many cases it does. Now, the cops also, they're going to respond. If the DA is not going to indict them, try them, then the cops are probably going to say, why do I waste my time to even arrest them? But it starts with the DA, because the DA is the rule of law in major cities and counties across the country.
So is there anything that Congress can do about it from like just a congressional level to combat it? Or it's strictly a DA thing?
No, the DOJ has lots of tools to use. They've got the grants, they've got the pulling it into the federal statute, because there are federal statutes. Now we have too many federal statutes, I'll admit, but we have federal statutes that cover most of what state statutes do.
Sorry, well, what's next for you, and what are you working on, so that my audience can learn more about you and what you're doing?
Well, I will tell you, my big issue is the debt and the deficit that we are balancing on the backs of our children and our grandchildren. At some point, this Republican conference in this Congress and in the Senate have got to say enough. We are not going to print more money. We're not going to balance our reckless spending on the backs of our children and our grandchildren.
So are you satisfied with the One Big Beautiful Bill as a whole?
We had to get the beauty of this bill across, the tax cuts.
Yes.
We had to have them. Yeah. Now the beast in this, the beauty and the beast in this bill is we've got some very optimistic projections for growth. I hope they come. I hope we just blow out the economy. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Absolutely.
But if we don't, we're back to those children and grandchildren bearing the brunt of it.
Okay, what about the America Party starting? What is your reaction to that?
A third party has never worked in this country. In fact, it can be detrimental, as we saw with Perot and Clinton. Do we need a better dialogue? We need a stronger dialogue. I'm not sure we need a third party.
Congressman, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, Addison McDowell, North Carolina 6.
What are you working on right now that the Big Beautiful Bill has passed?
Yeah, the most important thing to me is making good on the promise that we made to the American people to secure our border. And that doesn't just stop at funding the wall, funding ICE at historic levels. It stops with doing things to stop the flow of deadly fentanyl into our country. I lost my little brother Luke to a fentanyl poisoning. That's why I'm in Congress. And I want to make sure that we do everything that we can to prevent that from wrecking families like it has.
Given that we won't have Republican presidents forever, what can be done so that it's more of a permanent thing, that the border stays secure no matter what? Because I've seen firsthand Tren de Aragua's effect on, there's Roosevelt Avenue in New York City, there's prostitution, there's crime, and I've spoken to them personally. Okay, so the Venezuelan migrants are committing crimes here.
Yeah, really, it's true.
Okay. It's wreaking havoc.
Yeah.
So what do we do about it right now?
Well, I think the fentanyl issue and the border, it's human trafficking, it's drug trafficking, it's all of the above. And so we've got to secure our border. And I think a wall is a great first step, but having law enforcement that's actually able to do their job, not law enforcement that's told by a Democratic administration, you can't do your job. That's insane. But the cartels are not going to stop. They're going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And so when we secure our southern border and our northern border, it's going to go to our east and our west. And so we've got to make sure that the Coast Guard has what they need to secure these boats that are full of drugs that are trying to come here into the United States. So we've got to make sure that we're securing our entire country.
So we've spent a lot of time discussing the southern border on this channel, and the congressman's answer has inspired me to investigate what has happened on our maritime borders. Now, just from the data alone, I can see that in 2022, 382,000 1,000 pounds of illegal drugs were seized on our maritime border. Now, if you live close to our maritime borders and have seen things, email me at nate@natefriedmanshow.com. I would love to investigate further.
So I want to tell you about an investigation that I did on a company, an NGO named La Colaborativa. They have a migrant shelter, and the CEO said that she wasn't allowed to talk about it, that I had to go through Maura Healey, the governor's office. Now, she was on the board of the AARP, American Rescue Plan Act Fund, and she gave herself $500,000. She's on the board of the committee, and they're funded by that American Rescue Plan Act funding. So how do we prevent this, or should we?
Yeah, oh, we absolutely should. I mean, they want to call it NGOs. I want to call it money laundering, because that's what it is, right? I mean, these people that have had money flowing to them, then they've sent it to themselves, is money laundering. And it's money that's not going to people that actually need it. It's also money that the American people understand we don't have as a country. We've spent and spent and spent. We don't have the money anymore. And so to waste it on things like that has to stop. Yeah. And I'll do whatever it takes.
What do we do about the migrant shelters that are still active right now in sanctuary cities?
Yeah, I mean, we have to let law enforcement get in there and deal with the problem. We can't have criminals in our cities. But it makes me sick that there are illegal aliens, criminals, that are given more benefits than people in America that actually need them. And so the fact that the Democrats just all voted against the one big beautiful bill that would prevent illegals from getting Medicaid, SNAP, things like that, and give more of it to the people that actually need it, that's what the Democrats are against. Republicans are for being good stewards of your money and making sure that these illegals aren't getting all of our benefits.
So if you're curious about that La Colaborativa exposed video that I was referencing, I linked it in the description to watch after. Now, it is a microcosm of what is happening all over the country, where you have nonprofit CEOs who serve on the boards of the funds that distribute money to nonprofits. Obviously, it is a massive conflict of interest, and I'm so glad that it is on Congress's radar. As far as SNAP benefits no longer going to illegal immigrants, you will see in our last interview the congressman goes really into more detail about that. But just from watching our videos, you've seen that illegal immigrants were getting those SNAP benefits in addition to getting free food, housing, and healthcare. The one big beautiful bill did put a massive dent in the amount of tax money going to illegal immigrants.
Congressman, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you,
Awesome.
Mark Harris, North
Yeah.
Carolina's 8th Congressional District.
Here I asked Congressman Harris the same question we asked Congressman Self about whether he would allow Hamas headbands in his state. We will also discuss what's next for Act Blue.
I mean, in a lot of local communities, they make a decision that they're not going to have the Ku Klux Klan have a rally through the middle of their streets. Why? Because the message that they proclaim is one of hate, or the message that they proclaim is one of hurt. If that's what they're doing. And I think that when you know that Hamas is a known terrorist group identified by the United States, then that certainly could give you cause to say, we're not going to give you a permit for your demonstration here.
Yeah, so if that was happening in your state, you would advocate that they do not get a permit?
Yeah.
So there was a woman who followed me around. You can see her right there. She follows me around at a protest and calls me a right-wing troll, and she blows a kazoo.
Congratulations, by the way, on being a right-wing troll.
It was a good time. Anyway, she works for a company called Rise and Resist, and their donation link goes to Act Blue, and it's a non-profit. So what kind of investigations are going into Act Blue? Because it seems like there might be some wrongdoing there.
I think there's a lot of things that are going to be happening with Act Blue in the weeks and months ahead. I think that there's going to be some committees here in Congress that are going to be doing some investigation. People, I think, are already being brought in and some questions asked. I think there'll be some very public hearings that will take place because there is a lot of question of how that money is funneled into campaigns and exactly if there are election laws that are being broken, finance election laws that are being broken through that.
Like when they raised money for the LA fires, the fire victims, they did it through Act Blue, which was pretty astounding. Now, I wanted to say something else I saw in LA where there was a Red Cross and they set up like a triage area to help LA fire victims. But I saw a lot of illegal immigrants there. And what is your thoughts on, right now we still have illegal immigrants getting benefits like free housing, free food. What can be done about that right now?
Well, we're trying to make sure that gets cleaned up. I mean, one of the parts of the big beautiful bill is trying to make sure that illegal aliens are not able to get the benefits of our Medicaid program, that illegal immigrants are not able to get the benefits of our SNAP program. I mean, honestly, for the Biden administration, they use those kind of things as just sort of lures to invite people to come across the border. And this administration has been much more forthright in saying, no, we're not going to do that. And I think this Congress has appetite to make sure of that.
If you could get anything passed, any bill passed, what would you put in it?
Wow. If I could get any bill passed, I believe that I would, for me personally, I feel like our nation would have an opportunity to preserve life in the womb. To me, that is an issue that affects our entire country, because if you don't have the value of life, then you don't have, you open yourself up to the violence that we see. If you don't value life, you open yourself up to the taking of innocent life through all the kind of things that we have witnessed. Crime goes up, all of those things, if you don't value life. And I just think there would be more benefit in this nation to valuing every single life in the mother's womb and recognizing that that was a gift from God and that we were to honor and respect that life.
Yeah. I don't see bring them home pins on Democrat congressmen. Why is there such a divide between the Republicans and Democrats on Israel right now?
That has been a great question, and myself and some Jewish friends that I've talked to in Charlotte, where I'm from, have had that similar conversation. I don't really have the answer to that question of where is the divide, other than the fact that conservatives seem to recognize the importance of Israel. Conservative Christians, I think, recognize, because of the biblical relationship that is there and the Judeo-Christian values that are so foundational in this country. But I think even those that are conservative but not Christians certainly recognize the value of Israel being our friend in a rough neighborhood, and the only friend we got in a rough neighborhood.
And why do we need that friend?
Well, I think you need that friend because it's important for us to be able to preserve that part of the world. It's in order for us to keep peace in that part of the world, and I think they help keep peace in that part of the world in every way.
But the critics are going to say something like, well, you know, why do we have to give them money? Let them sort it out. They have a powerful military. So how does an Israel-U.S. relationship serve us?
A U.S. and Israel relationship serves both sides of that. One, because it's just the right thing to do to help Israel function as a land and invite folks to go back home. I mean, the decision that was made in 1948 to reconstitute Israel as a nation, I think has been a part of American foreign policy from that day forward. So I think it's the right thing to do, and everybody recognized that. I mean, after the Holocaust, my dad was in World War II. He was a prisoner of war. He was a waist gunner on a B-17, and his plane was shot down in November of 1944. From November of 44 until May of 45, he was held captive in a Nazi prison camp as an American. And so, you know, I have an extra appreciation for the sacrifice that was made, and then for the things that were found and uncovered of just the horrendous things of the Holocaust. I mean, the world recognized it was important for Israel to reconstitute as a nation and for folks to be able to come back to their homeland. So that would be one reason I think the relationship's so important. But it's also important because for America, we're able to have a great trade relationship with Israel. We're able to have a country that is a democracy, if you will, that is operating as a democracy. They do have a strong military, and they're just very, very sharp people. And I think you can't deny that.
Yeah,
and I think that that's very important for both sides as we work together. And I think what you saw happen just in the last few weeks in Iran proved that. I mean, Trump called it the 12-day war. They went to Iran, who, again, called America the big Satan and Israel little Satan. And they did the legwork leading up to America coming in and dropping those final bombs.
Up next is our final interview with a congressman who used to be a farmer. He is a Republican serving in California, so he had some things to say about Newsom. And after this interview, I'll be sharing just a few thoughts on my trip to D.C. and what I saw there. Enjoy.
Could you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, I'm Doug LaMalfa. I represent the 1st District of California, which is the far northeast east corner of the state. It borders Oregon and Nevada in that corner.
Very cool. So I spoke to a lot of people on the street yesterday, actually, about what their biggest concerns are, just right here in D.C., and they mentioned that...
Probably got a skewed sample there, huh?
Well, yeah, some people seem like a little bit in the middle, actually.
So how do we get the debt down, right? So we are already so high on debt, right? I mean, I didn't see anything that they said that this is going to bring down the debt, right? So tariffs is one thing where it's going to bring down like by $3 trillion in 10 years is what they're saying.
Yeah.
We are at $38 trillion right now. So how do we bring down the debt?
That's a genuine concern. Running $2 trillion deficits the last couple of years or longer, that's it. We'll be in a bad way on that, especially as debt service. If interest rates were to really take off for some reason, we'd be in a bad way because the service on debt would devour the rest of our discretionary part of our budget.
How do we actually start beginning to cut the deficit and reduce spending?
Our big bill did codify over 20 of the executive actions President Trump took. And, the work of the Doge committee and Elon Musk was very important in exposing a lot of really horrendous things within Social Security, within USAID. And we're hearing all the squawking over that. But you see how hard it is to make even simple cuts. We've got this $9.4 billion of recession that we're talking about, like right now. That's only $9 billion. That's a tiny percentage of $1 trillion. And you'd think it's the end of the world to some of the Dems and even a couple of Republicans here and there, like, oh my gosh, you can't cut that. But, what are we going to do?
Now, as of recording this, the $9 billion rescissions package did pass through the House and the Senate. So we've officially defunded NPR, PBS, and billions of dollars in foreign aid, such as $1 million to Haiti for voter ID. We don't even have voter ID here. One of the things I overheard in DC was how Democrats on the Hill believe that this is an attack on freedom of the press. How defunding state-funded media is an attack on freedom is a logic that is tough to navigate. But now for another question from the street.
I'm wearing the company that I'm working for T-shirt, and it's a bigger company. We do a lot of importing the stuff, and I know that from what I've been told, or at least what I've heard from other people, is that it's had a big effect on us. And it's really affected our business line. So I feel like asking about tariffs and asking about what's the future of trade going to look like is a really big question for Congress right now.
Well, it can be kind of a rough medicine to swallow. Certainly, I don't want to downplay it, but I think what President Trump has accomplished with that is really taking the game and just by the scruff and shaking it with a lot of these countries and their trade policy towards us. And so the U.S. seems to always absorb high tariffs from countries that we haven't really responded in kind with. And so you say, well, that's just escalation. Like, man, it hasn't worked so well with trade negotiations because, I'm from the ag sector. I'm a farmer in real life, and our commodities are frequently one of the things left behind in good trade policy. We got to get better with Japan and India and others on ag products going over there, but that's all products, all manufactured products, automobiles into Europe. Whatever. We absorb everybody's cars that comes from somewhere else in the world, but we have to get ours abusively tariffed when we're shipping them in. So really it's supposed to be changing the game, shaking the game up for a period of time. And we saw that it didn't take that long for countries to start responding like, okay, because they know, like, well, Canada, for example, it's going to hurt them a heck of a lot more than it's going to hurt us. Not that we want to hurt our neighbor. They're a good neighbor by and large, and so they're good people. But we just need a flatter, fairer playing field. When we had like dairy products going into Canada, I think a 275% tariff against our dairy products. That ain't right.
Hakeem Jeffries said that millions of people are going to lose their health care. People are
That's a Democrat talking point every time out, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so why don't you tell the audience, basically how a lot of people are worried that Republicans are just gutting Medicaid, Medicare. So
gutting the thing. Medicaid is largely preserved in this. What we focused on is really two aspects, and we have this big problem in California. We call it the Medicaid's called Medi-Cal in California. Governor Newsom and the gang in Sacramento have chosen that we're going to spend $12 billion of taxpayer money of the federal portion of Medicaid / Medi-Cal on illegal immigrants in California. Okay, $12 billion. That's also equal to the amount of the deficit of California's most recent budget to just settle. They had to do a bunch of hook and crook stuff in order to try and get that to zero because they're required to have a balanced budget at the state level. So $12 billion out the door for that. So we focused on illegal immigrants should not be receiving that benefit because it makes it harder on everybody else, harder on the taxpayers that have to pay into it, as well as what's called ABODs, able-bodied adult without dependents is the acronym for that. that should be seeking work. They should be out there because we're talking about able-bodied without dependents. So how long do they get to sit around on a program where we're talking, in one aspect on Ag Committee, the SNAP program, which is known as food stamps, used to be, and on Medicaid/Medi-Cal eligibility. They need to be able to participate in the workforce, even on a 20-hour-a-week basis. Everybody else out there, normal people out there busting it, and they see people, illegal immigrants or others that are ABODs that are not participating in the American economy.
I spoke to a conservative couple that said, I love what the Republicans are doing in the House, but I would love to see Social Security not be taxed. What would you say to them?
Well, we did a giant leap towards that in the reconciliation bill. We couldn't, by policy under reconciliation, change completely the tax formation on Social Security. So what we did was an additional tax credit for seniors on that of an additional $6,000 towards that, which is a giant leap for most seniors on what they receive. Now, to fix it more at the roots of it, we would have to pass legislation on that. And there's supposed to be bipartisan conversation on Social Security fixes anyway. I've talked to Mr. Larson on the other side about that a little bit. And we need to be able to take it head on. We need to have a nonpartisan, honest conversation about what we're going to do to have Social Security sustain itself beyond the year 2032 when the trust fund runs out.
In California, I went to California and in LA specifically, and they spent $24 billion on the homeless problem since 2019, and it's continuing to grow. So what's going on?
Newsom needs to be held accountable on it. Governor Newsom has been hanging around in South Carolina a few days last week or whatever week, toying with already 2028 presidential. And I'm not trying to be mean about this, but point to me in something California that's been successful in these last years on growing the economy, making things better for our school system, our highway system, our water storage. I'm a farmer, so water's a big deal for agriculture, and agriculture in California is a big deal to the rest of the country, too, with the crops that come from there and don't come from anywhere else. But I'm trying to figure out what on their track record is. All they've done is grown homeless, grown more illegal immigration, and benefits for people that aren't participants in our economy. I mean, I don't know where the wins have been under either Newsom or the 3-to-1 ratio Democrat majority they have in Sacramento. And again, I'm not just trying to be a partisan yo-yo on this thing. What are the wins in California? It's a mass exodus of business and manufacturing and jobs, and 8 headquarters all moving to Texas or Tennessee or North Carolina or somewhere else. Sure is, yeah. What are the wins? I don't know what the wins are here, and people need to pay attention. And for them to fall for the idea of Newsom being president 3.5 years from now, they better pay attention.
Well, you're representing in California, so how can people follow along with the work that you're doing? What's most important to you right now?
It's many facets here. It is really taming the national debt and the structural deficit we have each year, because if that's allowed to go unchecked, and again, we're trying to take a giant leap this year and bring in that $2 trillion. And people say, oh, it adds to the deficit in the future. Yeah, every year that you have a non-balancing budget adds to the future national debt, but we've narrowed the gap of what it would be 10 years from now with the steps we're taking here. So there is improvement on this, but we got to have better improvement. As long as they've been here, like, well, we'll balance the budget over 10 years, and like, now we're going to have 10 more years. We need to balance it.
You want it to be faster.
Much sooner, and we don't do that by raising taxes on everybody, because that just, raising taxes is like hitting somebody with a cattle prod. They move away from that stimulus. They go, and so that means jobs move out of the country, they shut down or whatever, and less regulations would be helpful on unreasonable. We need reasonable regulations, but a lot of unreasonable ones that are just stupid. I see a picture of some forest here on your computer pad. I mean, on the West, managing our forests. Why is the U.S. the number one importer of wood products when we're burning millions of acres every year? We should take these trees out of our forests on a managed way, on a prescribed way, not just willy-nilly cut everything from here to Utah. You know what I mean? So there's smart ways to do all this stuff. It's not rocket science. It's not hard. Let's just do it. Environmental groups are against everything, and I don't understand what some of the others are thinking on that. And the Democrats just seem to, by and large, the elected ones, not normal people that happen to be Democrats, but the elected ones take really extreme positions against trying to do these things, because I guess they want to have a perfect scoring record with environmental groups. But it's just hurting us bad.
that concludes our interviews with congressmen. Now, I definitely learned a lot, and I hope you did too. Just the fact that Congress is now more aware than ever about paid protesters, no-bid deals, and more that have been wreaking havoc on our country is a great thing. Now, I wanted to real quick just share some thoughts about the trip. Firstly, it's funny how congressmen don't put on their doors whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, but by the flags they put outside, you can always tell. Secondly, DC felt kind of empty. I stood outside the massive government buildings and barely saw any movement in and out of the offices. Third was actually something I loved about DC, and it wasn't just how beautiful the mall was, it was the amount of American flags there. Everywhere I'd look, I would see an American flag. Compare that to New York City, where there's so many different flags that if you were visiting, you would genuinely be unsure what country you were even in. Lastly, at least on the Republican side, DC clearly respects this new form of journalism. There were over 20 new media journalists at the event, many of which were independent. It feels like we're at the start of a massive wave of increased transparency, and it's an honor to be a small part of it. Thank you for watching. And if you'd like to see whether migrants are self-deporting and why, check out this episode on your screen, and I'll see you there.